Hello, everybody. Welcome to Galactic Wisdom. I don't know what just happened there, Bill, but I think I left the studio like seconds before the show. But I'm glad I found my way back. I'm here now, and we have some interesting questions I would like to look at today on this show. What are spirits made out of? Why are aliens modifying human spirits? Why are aliens selectively breeding and genetically engineering hybrids? What will happen to humans in the future? That's a big, important question because the future is close. Yeah, those are some of the questions we're going to look at today. So probably people watching this show already have picked up on the fact that I am a qualified space scientist and I'm a logician. Logician meaning somebody that's interested in applying logic to reality and also to morality. And so I'm going to look at these questions from a very logical perspective. Now, scientists don't know everything, and good scientists know that science doesn't know everything. There's a lot in the universe that we don't know. We don't know what dark matter is. We don't know what dark energy is. Those things seem to be applying forces to our universe in ways that we don't quite understand. We can observe that there are forces being applied to our universe on big scales, but we don't know where those forces are coming from, what are causing those forces. Well, I have theories that those forces are coming from ultra-dimensional or extra-dimensional or higher dimensional substance in higher dimensional spaces. As a paranormal investigator, I know that these ultra-dimensional spaces exist, and science doesn't take those into account when we're trying to figure out what is going on. So let's take a look at one big mystery that science doesn't understand, and that is the asymmetry of matter and antimatter in the universe. You're probably familiar with the idea that if you have a bit of matter, you have a bit of antimatter, and you bring them close together, there's this big explosion and they sort of mutually annihilate in a big puff of energy. And at the beginning of the universe, what scientists think happened was huge amounts of matter and antimatter were formed simultaneously at the start of the universe. And having been formed, what then happened to that matter and antimatter? Why didn't the universe fall back in on itself with the matter and antimatter then annihilating itself into a puff of energy? It's confusing to scientists because when we look at the universe today, what we see is a very matter-dominated universe. All of the 118 different elements on the periodic table that that occur naturally, that we've created artificially, even if for just brief moments in time, all of those elements, that's all matter. And the subatomic particles they're made of, that's all matter. So where did all of that antimatter disappear to that was supposed to have been created at the start of the universe? Well, one theory that scientists have is that the matter that we see in the universe today, that was just a little bit, that represents the little bit more of matter than antimatter that formed, and most of the matter and antimatter that was formed in the universe came back together and annihilated itself and disappeared in a puff of energy. And what we can see now is just the matter that was left over. They speculate that maybe one particle in a billion was a little bit more matter than antimatter. I have a theory, and that is, and this is supported by a vision that I was given by some of my alien friends when I was thinking about this subject. I had a vision of at the start of the universe when there was a immense sea of energy and subatomic particles and matter and antimatter. There was such immense pressure there as this explosion was happening that the antimatter was pushed or squeezed out into ultra-dimensional spaces. And as the universe continued to expand, the first 3 dimensions of space became matter dominant, while the ultra-dimensional spaces, the 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional, 6-dimensional spaces, however many there are, that's where the antimatter went to. And that's how they've been separated. Now, matter and antimatter, they're actually very, very similar. They have similar components, they have similar mass, they have similar structure. They just have different charges. And so this difference in electric charge is very interesting, because this difference in electric charge could be why we measure electric fields when entities from ultra-dimensional spaces come close to us. The positive and negative charges form a potential difference, an electric potential difference, which measures as EMF in our paranormal investigating equipment. We measure an electric field. And we measure the same sort of thing when alien-related phenomena are around us also. So what this means is that spiritual beings could be out there in ultra-dimensional spaces. They could well be made out of this antimatter. Spirits could be antimatter consciousnesses. We could have, as living organisms right now, our spirits formed around us that are separated by dimensional spaces, but kept together by these electric forces. That would explain a lot. And I talked a lot about that in the last week's show, so I'm not going to go into it in a huge amount more detail now, other than just to say that is one theory that I have, which would explain what spirits are made out of, what alien tech may be made out of, and why we get these electromagnetic fields that we can measure when different beings come in close to us. So if we were to ask the question, what are spirits made out of? Well, they could be made out of antimatter. And they could be very similar to how we appear now, just in ultra-dimensional spaces. Being ultra-dimensional spatial beings, they have more dimensions, so their mass would be spread out over a larger volume, or quolume in ultra-dimensional spaces. Therefore, their density would be less, which could explain quite a few things to do with spirits and different extra-dimensional beings. So that's a theory to do with spirits. Now, that was the first question that I put in today's description for this show. What are spirits made out of? Why are aliens modifying spirits? That's another very important question. We recently have, me and my friends, the group that I have outside of this show, we have recently, in the last few months, connected with EBANS. EBANS stands for Extraterrestrial Biological Entity. The word EBAN was assigned to these aliens or extraterrestrial biological entities by humans, but that's the word that we use. There is a Majestic 12 document that was leaked a while ago, and you can find this online if you search for it. And in this Majestic 12 document, they detail 2 different types of EBAN, or in that document, they say EBE, Extraterrestrial Biological Entity. EBE1, EBE2. The EBE1s were described as non-mammalian, and they're kind of reptile in nature. They look, well, there's 2 EBEs. There's EBE1, there's EBE2. And the easiest way to describe these 2 is if you look at online for the alien autopsy video, then that is probably the EBE ones. If it's real, and if it's not real, it's a very good close representation of the EBE ones. There are EBE 2s, which seem to be more alien looking, a little less human, a little more alien. And if you look online for the alien interview video that was smuggled out of Area 51, then that's what the EBE2s look like. We recently made contact with EBE2s. It's a very interesting story. In two different situations, in two different places, we had these EBENs coming to us, these EBE2s. When I host online meetings, I very often, every time we do this, we astrally project to different beings around the universe, and we can communicate with them spiritually. I'm sure you all know that, watching paranormal shows like this, that it's possible to meditate, to astrally project to different beings, to remote view them, and also to remote communicate with them. I do that 2 or 3 times a week. I collaborated on a remote viewing with MUFON a few days ago, in which we remote viewed a target of interest for MUFON. Well, a few months ago, when I was astrally projecting to different, where was it? We were astrally projecting to a group of aliens that we call the Galactic Council. And this EBEN, this extraterrestrial biological entity, came into our psychic field of view and identified itself amusingly as Jean-Luc. And we asked, well, why are you called Jean-Luc? And the EBEN said, I like Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek Next Generation. Now, these beings are telepathic, so they communicate telepathically. They don't communicate via words generally among themselves. So when they communicate with us, they put meaning into our minds telepathically, and we translate that into words. And when they communicate with us telepathically, a lot of these alien species, they have to therefore create names for themselves so that we are able to talk to them and give them a name. And this particular entity obviously has watched Star Trek The Next Generation, which is kind of fun, kind of cool, and therefore identifies with the character of Jean-Luc Picard, who is a captain of a ship, and this EBEN is a captain of his ship and his crew of 5. Well, this being came to us, and the big message that this being had for us was to show us images of a future in which there is catastrophic climate change. And the message was, we need to wake up to that. That's why he communicated with us. Now, a few months later, maybe a couple of months ago from the present time, I went on this large 33 event, 26 state US tour, the Contact Tour. And while I was in Blue Springs, Missouri, hosting a contact event, we had a craft come down close to us behind some trees and land. And this was perceived by several people through extra-dimensional spiritual perceptions. We didn't see a physical craft land, but everybody turned around and felt it, and we looked in that direction. And beings stepped forwards. Now, I know a lot of people around the US, around the world, and a lot of them are professional mediums, professional psychics, professional energy healers. And they see that what I'm doing is very interesting, and they like to get involved with it. So some of them came out to that event, and they were having conversations. Professional mediums who usually talk to human spirits were having conversations for the first time that they've ever had these conversations, but with aliens. And I'm asking them questions, trying to identify who they are. And these beings identified themselves as Ebens. And there was a message that they wanted to give to us. And that is basically they support what we're doing and they're open to further communication with us. So the next day I met one-on-one with one of these professional mediums, and we talked again to one of these Ebens, the captain of their ship. This captain was a female, and she identified herself initially as D, and we couldn't hear the full name initially, but just D. And during this communication, I asked them, is there anything we can do for you? Usually the conversation that humans have with aliens is, can you save us? Can you help us? Can you give us your technology? Can you do this for us? Can you heal us? Can you do that? My approach was to say, well, we would like to be friends with you. What can we do for you? And they responded by showing us images, first of all, of over history, how they have been treated by human beings. They showed us images of them being captured by various different human beings throughout hundreds or thousands of years of history, and being tortured, killed, mutilated, treated very, very badly by humans. And they showed us those images first, and they were kind of disturbing images, but they showed us those images because they wanted to show us two things. First of all, how the reason why they are distrusting of humans, the reason why they don't land openly in front of us all and walk out of their spacecraft, how well would that go? They would get shot pretty quickly. They would get captured. They would get killed. That was the first thing. And the second reason is because that's the sort of thing that has happened in the past. That's the sort of thing that's still going on today. And when I asked, is there anything we can do to... Sorry, I'm pausing because they just turned up here. I always get a change in air pressure, ringing in my ears, and physiological symptoms when they show up. So they're listening to the conversation here. They wanted to ask if we could help them to reduce that sort of activity that is going on in the present day. And we felt very privileged to receive this message from them. And basically we said yes, and I said yes, and they've already given me a couple of tasks to do, one of which I completed. It's probably wise not to go into the specific tasks that they're asking me to do. Nothing illegal, nothing terrible, nothing that is going to really upset anybody, but it's confidential between me and them. And so then we started working with the Ebens. A couple of weeks after that, I met both in person and with a few people online, the people who were involved in the initial contact with the Eben who called himself Jean-Luc, and the female Eben who identified herself as D. We brought everybody together, both humans, the contactees, and these Ebens, and we had a meeting. And during that meeting, we tried to figure out what Dee's full name was. Turned out her full name was Deanna. And when I asked, how did you get that name, Deanna? She turned to Jean-Luc and said, he gave it to me. She's only just started doing this contacting with humans, and she needed a name. She didn't know what name to name herself. So Jean-Luc named this Eben Deanna. And those people who are Star Trek fans out there will know that there's a connection there. Deanna Troi was one of Jean-Luc's. She was a telepathic officer who worked on the bridge on the Enterprise on his spacecraft. So that was a very interesting little confirmation there that came from different sources. But these Ebens, they asked us in that meeting for permission. if I keep hesitating, it's because like my hair is standing up on end, and I'm getting like I'm feeling the effects of their electromagnetic presence, and it's a little bit off-putting. They asked for permission to spiritually modify us, to enhance us. And we asked why do you want to do this? And they said, we can assist you by modifying your human spirits to be able to communicate psychically with us more efficiently, more easily. And they asked for permission, and myself and 3 or 4 of the humans that were there, we gave permission. And that is one of the reasons why aliens are modifying human spirits. Now, I've had modifications being made to me for a couple of years prior to that, and it is for communication. It is to make me stronger in my ability to heal people. That's one of the things that I do, just like an energy healer, Reiki healer, all of these different people out there. If you go to any paranormal convention, there'll be tens or hundreds of these energy healers there. That's something I can do. And they've been modifying me to enable me to do that more strongly. Also, when I host my online events where I'm guiding people to astrally travel to different places, they've been enhancing me, making me more able to just bring along a group of human spirits with me during those astral projection events. So this is why aliens are modifying some human spirits. How are they choosing who gets modified and who doesn't? Well, they have an agenda, and it's different to human agendas. Their agenda is to move this planet and all species towards more harmonious relationships. It's good for them, it's good for us, it's good for everybody, it's good for all life on this planet. And so they are supporting not humans as a whole, but humans who have similar goals in their activities. And my goals are all driven by my vision of the future that I'm trying to move people towards. And my vision of the future is universal peace, universal love, and universal well-being. Now, that might sound simple. It's basically unconditional love, unconditional peace, unconditional consideration for all. And humans are quite good at listening to those words and thinking, "Oh yeah, I like that. I want in with that. I want to get on board that vehicle that is moving the world in that direction." But then when they don't like something about somebody, something that person says or thinks, their opinion, their religious opinion, their political opinion, the country they're from, the color of their skin, their gender, it could be anything, then people seem to have this switch that changes this whole notion of universal peace, universal love, universal well-being, and it turns into attack mode. That's one of the issues with humanity, is we can't disengage from harming people that we dislike. If you're somebody who can really be peaceful, if you can put peace first, if you can put peace above everything else, if you can put peace above your religion, above your politics, above your country, above everything else, above wealth, if you can put peace first, then these beings are going to pay attention to you. If you can live your life in a way that is not harming others at all, verbally, physically, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, if you can not harm others, then they will wake up, then they will notice that, and they'll be interested in supporting you. But humans find that so hard, just listen to what people are doing on the news, listen to and watch what people are saying on social media. It's a dark, dark world out there. And so, yeah, if you are the kind of person that is on board with the idea of universal peace, universal love, universal well-being, then you can make friends with these beings. And they might even, if you're actually working towards that goal, they might even start supporting you, communicating with you, and even strengthening your spirit, protecting you, enhancing you. And aliens are modifying people's spirits, but they've been selectively breeding themselves and humans, and they've been genetically engineering hybrids in order to increase there's a few different reasons for this. There's several different programs out there which different aliens involved, and some of them have different human organizations involved. But the biggest reason for doing this is to try to move the world in a better direction. And this selective breeding has been going on for decades. This genetic engineering has been going on also for decades. It's when people talk about abductions or being taken by aliens, genetic reproductive things sometimes with some species happen, and they are increasing their numbers by doing that. They are therefore increasing the number of beings in this area of space which are working towards harmonious goals rather than destructive goals. They're also preparing for the future. The future for humanity is looking a little bit dark, a little bit. There are catastrophes coming when you arm the world with over 12,000 nuclear weapons, when you ignore the science of climate change and you just keep on driving the planet towards uninhabitability. Sooner or later, you're going to have bad things happen to you. And one thing they're doing is preparing hybrid bodies that are not being created as life forms in themselves, new life forms like children. They are creating vessels that have been designed, genetically engineered for some human beings to, after death, have their spirits put into so that they can continue the work that they're doing. And also, our planet is changing. The temperature of this planet is nearly changed by 1.5 degrees C, which is something like 3 degrees Fahrenheit, just since pre-industrial revolution times. And it's going to keep increasing. The temperature is going to keep increasing. The climate's changing. The environment's changing. And those organisms, including humans on this planet that don't adapt to those changes, are not going to survive. They're going to die. And so they are creating hybrids that are adapted to be able to cope in different conditions. When you look at beings like reptilians, who have been, their bodies have been genetically engineered out of human DNA and reptile DNA to be able to live in conditions that are too hot for human beings. They live out there in the mountains surrounding Las Vegas, for example. That's an example of genetic engineering being done to enable a species to live in a more hostile environment. And that's one of the things that these beings are doing. What will happen to beings in the future? That's one of the questions that I put in today's show description. Some of this is you can psychically look into the future and see what's going on. If you psychically look into the future, or if you just listen to all of the people all of the psychics, all of the people that are connecting with aliens and receiving visions, premonitions of the future, what they're being shown is a future in which the world is hotter, drier, and there's been catastrophic degradation of forests and plants, and there's not enough water, and it's post-apocalyptic, basically. That's the future that we're moving towards. You can probably tell, those people that are perceptive, if you look at world news, you can probably tell there's a destabilization, an increasing destabilization around the planet. And it's been increasing for decades, and it's being driven by people, individuals who have ridiculously unfair amounts of wealth and power. And these people, by hoarding all of that wealth and that power, they're demonstrating to the world that they really don't care about other people. And they are pushing the world in directions that help them personally. It's selfishness, it's greed, it's power, and they really don't care about other people. And it's been diverting the resources that this planet has away from the larger population towards them, and they really don't care about everybody else. And this destabilization, the nuclear weapons, the climate change, we've got visions of that happening, that causing great problems in the near future, but we don't need to have visions of it, because we can just observe what's happening in the world. We can see that, I'm sad to say, powers of darkness are winning out in a lot of cases, and they are overpowering the good in this world. The people who are in control are often very dishonest. They manipulate, and they do so with power, with wealth, with skill, with intelligence. And the good side is losing control of this planet. But as scientists, we can look at the data, and we can make very clear projections on where this is taking us. And where this is taking us to is a collapse of that system, is a big crash in population numbers on this planet. We have several billion people living on this planet. Now, throughout hundreds of thousands of years of humans living on this planet, we haven't had billions of people. That's only happened in the last 200 or 300 years, and it's a very unnatural state to be in. And there are too many people on this planet who are utilizing too many resources in an unwise way on this planet, and we're driving climate change, and it's going to collapse, and it's already collapsing. It's collapsing within our lifetimes. If you're listening to this show and you have more than 5 years, 5 years of life left in you, you're probably going to witness this collapse starting to happen. That's humanity's future. That's who Homo sapiens are. And what's going to happen to humans like you and me, the people that are listening to this show? Well, a large number of people on the planet are going to die through climate disasters and through destabilization of nations. There will be civil wars. There will be more wars. My goodness, we were in a dangerous situation with South Korea just a few days ago. I lived in South Korea for a little while. I have friends there, so that was very troubling. But that sort of thing is going to keep escalating and increasing on this planet. And a lot of good people all around the world are not going to make it. There's going to be this major collapse of most people on the planet, but at the same time, there is going to be alien-supported, on the good side, moral supported, beings of light supporting pockets of people around the world communities of people around the world, individuals around the world who have been selectively bred or genetically engineered or just chosen by them for being harmonious enough to be in what is to come. And what is to come in the future, the beings, the people who survive it through to the next stage of humanity, are going to be those who are able to live in harmony with each other. And there are going to be humans that are supported to survive through these changes, and there's going to be the next evolutionary step in human history. Throughout our history, we've had to wait for often hundreds of thousands of years for the word is speciation, for the next species to evolve, smarter, better developed, more able to survive, better able to adapt, more intelligent. And it's taken hundreds of thousands of years for that next step to happen. Well, we don't have time for that to happen right now. But fortunately, our alien friends are genetic engineers. And they're already engineering the next species. They're already engineering our descendant species. And you can be involved in either being the forefathers, the foremothers of that descendant species, or you can, through spiritual enhancement, be actually consciously and then physically reincarnated essentially into hybrid bodies that become the next step in evolution on this planet. Now, this might sound like crazy sci-fi stuff, and as I say it, it almost sounds that way, but I've received so much proof that this is true, that for me personally, it's just knowledge. And if you go away and you research anything to do with aliens, you'll find that you only find supporting evidence for what I'm talking about. So I like to give advice to people on this show. And the advice that I have for people on this show who are still listening to me, who would like to be part of the better future, is to get involved with trying to communicate with advanced non-human entities, because you can make friends with them, they can support you, and if you are living your life in a way that they like, they will support you. And what does that involve, living our lives in a way that they like? It involves us learning new stuff, learning about others, learning about them, learning about the planet, how the planet works in a natural, healthy way. If we can't learn new stuff, then and if we can't learn about others, then we don't know how to live in harmony with others. So we have to be willing to learn new things. That's hard for human beings, though, to learn new things. There's that expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So I ask you, do you have what it takes to keep learning new things? Now, in order to learn new things, there's a few other things you need to be able to do. One of those things is to be able to determine what is true. I'm very careful when I talk about US politics. I don't take sides on air here. But you can see that when you look at US politics, it's pretty much divided down the middle about how people perceive reality. How, when we look at leaders and potential leaders, approximately half of the US thinks that this group over here are wonderful and that the other group are demonic, and the other half have got it completely switched around the other way. Who's right and who's wrong? When we are in a situation where half of the population approximately can't tell the difference between benevolent and evil, it shows that there's something not quite working in how we figure out what is true and what isn't. When we have so many people who disagree on whether people went to the moon or not, on whether vaccinations are good things or not, 5G, on whether the people operate the CERN particle accelerator, whether they're doing legitimate science experiments or whether they're trying to open up portals to demonic realms. We've got so many people on this planet who demonstrate that they are not able to accurately perceive what the truth is, what reality is. That shows us that there is some kind of a flaw in the thinking processes that are going on inside of human beings. And that flaw is just simply we haven't quite evolved to be able to do this well. It's new. This whole thing about being able to figure out what is real in the world, that's new to human beings. That's why science only was just recently, in a big way, has taken off in the last 300 years out of 300,000 years of human history. So being able to learn how to think in a way that accurately enables us, reliably enables us to work out what is true or not, that's one of the skills that humans need to learn. Next week, I'm going to talk more about that. So that's another thing that we need to do, enable to qualify to make it through to the next stage in human evolution. Another thing that is required in order to learning is the first thing. Being able to determine the truth in order to learn, that's the second thing. But there's an obstacle in our path. One of these big obstacles in our paths towards being able to think properly in order to determine what is true, and that is the tendency of human beings to accept things as being true that are not true. That is called believing. To believe things, to accept things without proof, and then have such firm faith in them that we're just not willing to entertain, we're not willing to be open to other possibilities. If anybody takes learning seriously, if anybody wants to take ascension or enlightenment seriously, you have to be open to all possibilities, including the possibility that you're wrong about the things that you think are right. You've always got to maintain that openness. And the whole concept of having faith in something is that you don't question your beliefs. You stay firm and you stay true to the things that you believe in. That having faith is marketed to humanity as an attribute, but it's actually a intellectual flaw. Needing a leap of faith in order to accept something as being true means that you're opening yourself up to making mistakes. And when you look at the history of humanity and how many mistakes we've made in our past that are belief-based, it's astonishing to me that more people are not learning this lesson. There's two ways to accept something as being true: with proof, without proof. You've got to learn how to think in order to learn how to be able to learn how to prove things. If you accept things as being true without proof, you deliberately it's required that you don't have proof. If you have proof, then that's knowledge. In order to believe something, you have to have an absence of proof. And this absence of proof, this absence of asking questions, this absence of having your faith shaken, is marketed, is sold as being something positive to humanity when actually it's negative. So what have we got? We've got to learn things. We've got to learn how to think well enough that we can determine truths. We've got to try to let go of our beliefs. We've got to transition from a belief-based way of thinking into a knowledge-based way of thinking. And then we've got to use those three things to try and figure out how we're going to live in harmony with other people and other beings on this planet, animals on this planet. We certainly do not live in harmony with animals on this planet or with nature in general. How do we do that? This is a matter of morality. And this is hard for people because the nature of who we are is that we have within us instincts that assist us to survive. That's why we are where we are, because we're survival machines. All organisms that exist on the planet today, they haven't evolved and survived to being where they are by being benevolent. They've evolved and survived to where they are by out-competing the other species around them. Sometimes that means eating the other species around them, if you're a predator. Sometimes that means, for humans, having being good at stealing things from others. Now, stealing is immoral. I consider stealing to be immoral, but if you're good at stealing, then that gives you a survival and a reproductive advantage. And that's why stealing is prevalent throughout our society. If you're good at lying, that gives you a survival and reproductive advantage, even though it's not moral. And that is why lying is so widespread throughout our world, because people lie and it works. It gives them an advantage. Being honest and being peaceful, it hasn't been up to this point a survival advantage. So we've got to realize that we've reached the stage in our life on this planet when these dark tendencies that we have to steal, to lie, to exact swift and terrible revenge and retribution and accountability on people who either do us wrong or we just don't like, to walk on top of others and harm others in order that we can benefit from them being harmed and put down. If you've got competitors in any field, including, for example, in the paranormal or alien fields, if you've got people competing to be on shows like this, to be heard by people, to go to conventions, to be on TV shows and in documentaries, then it's an advantage if you can be dishonest in a way that you push other people down. But that's not moral. That's not what I do. That's not what our alien friends do. But if you have those darknesses within you, which most people do, then what that results in is the world that we have today. What that results in is humanity now being so destructive that we can't stop ourselves from destroying the very habitat that sustains us. And if we are to survive into the future through this, those darker instincts, they're not going to help us this time. They're not going to help us. What is going to help us is that there are more evolved beings on the other side. That there are more evolved beings out there in the universe. That there are ascended beings out there who are moral, who've passed the test of either destroying themselves or not destroying themselves once they get the technology. And they have not destroyed themselves. And we communicate with them. There's beautiful beings out there who are willing to assist us if we can suppress, overcome our darker tendencies, if we can be honest with people, if we can not steal from each other, if we can live lives that are in harmony with nature and with other people. Now, we can be in harmony with others. Doesn't mean they're going to be in harmony with us, but we can live our lives in a way that promotes harmony with others. If we can put aside all of our tendencies to harm people, to harm any conscious beings, we don't need to harm each other. We could have a beautiful planet if we didn't harm each other. We could have a paradise on earth. We could have a utopia. And in the future, that's what we're going to have after the collapse of the darkness that is promoted by most people on this planet. So I've talked a lot, and I hope I've given people a few things to think about. I've said before, and I'll say it again, we're never, even if we stay alive for another 1,000 years, we're not going to learn all of the truths. We're not going to gain all the knowledge of the universe. We're not going to understand everything. Those goals are beyond us currently, but there are some very important goals and things that we can accomplish right now, here, today. We can make the decision to stop harming others for any reason other than indirect self-defense. We can make the decision to try and learn new things. We can make the decision to reach out in peace to these different beings, to try and communicate with them. We can make the decision to become ascended as is practically possible for us. If you would like to join me on the journey that I am on, I invite you to join me. If you like the things that I'm saying, then please join my Patreon group at patreon.com Galactic Wisdom. There is a join for free option there if people want to join for free. But if you want to support what I'm doing, then please consider joining one of the tiers there. Next week, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to delve a little bit more into this subject of thinking. I'm going to talk about how our thinking has developed over 4.6 billion years, what our present current state of truth evaluation and thinking is, and how we can take a leap into the future right now in being able to determine what is true and what is real on this planet. I would like to thank all of you for watching. I can't see who you are, but I want you to know that I wish you unconditionally peace, love, happiness, and well-being in your lives. You all take care. Goodbye for now.